Everybody, Brian Boyle here, and I've got my good friend Avery tomorrow with me. And hey, welcome to episode 170 of The Mesh Tongue. So, for those that don't know me, my name's Brian Boyle. I've been doing this a long time. Boy, today is we've had a very good time this weekend, and that is how tongue-tied I am. I've been doing this a long time. 19 years as a physical therapist, helping hundreds, if not thousands, of runners just like you try and solve their problems, keep you running. That is my whole goal with this, is to keep you running, not to tell you, hey, the easy route to just take a break and stop running. But been a runner since the age of 14, and in some sort of capacity, whether it was coaching, running, taking care of runners, so around the industry for a long time. So hopefully what I bring to you is of some value, and if you find value in this, please share this with your friends, family, training partners. But the reason I wanted to bring Avery in today is that this weekend, Avery's been training, and he's got a bunch of different races coming up and such, and I wanted to kind of give you some real world experience, so that this isn't just fluff, it's not just theory. As Avery was training this weekend, it was a lot of things I think most of you are going through, or if you haven't gone through yet, you will likely go through. And so I really just wanted to kind of highlight this, and Avery was a willing guest, and so Avery, tell me, so what do you do for a living?
So I'm a sales consultant, so I basically sit behind my desk for 6, 8, 10 hours a day, but sometimes I get to move out. So
right. So Avery is not he's not a physical therapist. He's not a professional runner. He is more than likely just like you. Does a lot of sitting, and then tries to be as active as he possibly can. Husband and father of 4. So work, kids, training. This is the stuff. This is the real world stuff that I absolutely love, and I know that you guys will find value in. So what are you training for right now?
I'm training for the Catalina Eco Marathon. So it's a little bit of fun, because it's not just 26.2 miles like a marathon. You get the added bonus of adding on 5, 6, 7,000 feet of elevation gain on top of that. So,
and when's that?
That's in November, so that'll be November 18th. So about a month and a half from now.
Right. So Avery's right in the thick of this. I mean, if you are out there and you are this same thing, I think you're going to find some value in this. So Avery is up. His family's here on their fall break. We try to get together at least once or twice a year if we can make it possible. They live down in the Phoenix area. We're up here in Salt Lake area. So again, on vacation, but what have we talked about? The getting out and still training when you're on vacation. So Friday night, these guys arrive Thursday, and we like to have a good time. The kids get to bed, and between us, we've got they had one of their daughters stay at home. So between the two families, we've got 6 kids here, and it's just one of those things where you're trying to get everything in, trying to get the kids to bed, and yet here's a guy that's in the middle of marathon training. And so Friday night, what happened Friday night? We're all kind of sitting down to play some cards, and
yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that.
So Friday night, like you said, we got the kids to bed, and I hadn't had I'd been eating off my normal diet, so I'd been eating, I'm used to eating a lot more vegetables and whatnot, but I was eating pizza. We had gone to Boondocks that night, so I had some pizza and some soda, and then I realized at about 11 p.m., I need a lot more water, and I need to think about getting to bed. So while we sat and played cards, you guys may have had a couple of drinks. I may have been concentrating on drinking, I think, about 64 ounces of water in about an hour while I was sitting there, and then I was thinking about, okay, I need to get to bed here soon, because I got to get up in the morning and do 15 miles plus a mile on the end to walk out my legs. So
right. So this is the things that you have to make, right? You have decisions and choices that you can make. It probably would have been just as easy for Avery to say, hey, you know what? Maybe I'll just skip this run, okay? However, in the middle of marathon training season, he's got this marathon coming up in 6 weeks. He's not on his own normal schedule. He's in a different bed, in a different environment, at a little bit of elevation. That's a little bit, the humidity is about the same, okay? So it's not drier, but it's at a higher elevation, which again is going to dry you out a lot quicker. Could have sat around and played cards and had some drinks and things, but Again, maybe not the best diet choices, but that's, again, you're going to get what you're going to get sometimes. Okay, that's where we were at. Dinner was what it was.
Yep.
There weren't any other healthy options. But it didn't deter him, and so as I'm sitting there thinking, it's like, well, this is perfect. Okay, it comes down to the decisions, and then if you can't make the best decision, we make better decisions.
Make the next best one, right? So just tried to do the best thing I could, which was, hey, I knew if I couldn't affect what I was eating very much, because it is what it is, I knew I could at least get water in me so that the next day I wouldn't be dehydrated out on my run. So.
Right. So then Saturday morning, Avery and I had kind of decided that I was going to meet him out for a little bit, the middle part of his run. He's going for 15 plus, and I have no business running anywhere close to that at this point, since I'm not training for anything, right? And so, Avery said he was going to send a text message or give me a cookie on his road ID, and I'd go out and meet him. So tell me about what happened Saturday morning, though.
So I wake up Saturday morning, this is not typical, but I woke up this Saturday morning, probably eating from bad, maybe from elevation, running on Thursday, whatever. I woke up and I took 2 steps out of bed and I literally felt like I was going to puke. So I go running into the bathroom, didn't end up puking, but I was not feeling great, but I took a couple glasses of water, got my normal gear on, and I pretty much convinced myself, okay, I've got a bunch of stuff I want to do with you guys and spend some time with family, so I'm just going to go out and do a little bit. I'm not even going to get my 15 miles like I want to. Well, no sooner do I get out the door than my stomach is just completely churned. All that pizza from the day before, the sandwich, the bread, the stuff that I'm not really used to eating is just completely churning. And so I had a little bit of runner's stomach as I started off, and I didn't think I was going to make it 2 miles, much less 15. But really importantly, I grabbed my water bottles and I filled them up with my hydration, which I had taken at your recommendation. I took some of that SOS powder and I had thrown them in there, and I was drinking those. And actually, after first 2 miles, I stopped, stretched myself out, did a lot of plyometrics. So I did about 10 minutes, not quite 2 miles. Did 10 minutes, did some stretches, plyometric stretches, not static, and still wasn't feeling great, but then got some water in me, and then started running up the hills here, because from Brian's house here in the valley, you run flat for a little while, and then you just turn up the hills. We were going to run up this fire road. And then got into the fire road, and I got kind of lost running up these fire roads, but I was basically running straight uphill, so I had to deviate from my normal plan, which was run at a certain effort level, but I kept it at the certain effort level. I was still in zone 2, but I had to turn to go to walking. So I wasn't, which is actually good for my marathon practice, because we're going to be doing so much elevation that it's not a bad practice. So I ended up walking up these pretty steep hills. Total elevation for the day was 2,000 feet over 15 miles, which is not so bad, mostly concentrated in a couple miles there. So. Right. And then I got lost up in the canyons. I took a different route where you couldn't find me on the road ID.
One of those things where road ID kind of checks in with you every maybe 30 seconds or a minute or 2 minutes or something like that. It'll ping a spot, but I was able to find kind of where the general vicinity he was, and kind of it all worked out in the end. But what I kind of impressed me, or was impressed upon me, was towards the end there. When we finally caught up to each other. What'd you tell me when we were running? You said,
so I see Brian come running towards the end of my run. I think it's like mile 13 and a half, and I see this guy running towards me, and I'm like, oh, I hope that's Brian, because this is the end of my run, and I haven't felt great the entire run. I felt awful. It was 13 miles of just slogging through it. And here comes Brian, and right about then I start to pick up, and I've taken a Lara bar with me, and maybe that was coming into play, or maybe it was the water. But right at about mile 13, 14, I really started to feel excellent. Right, my whole run up to that point, I didn't feel great, and I went from averaging about 10:30 for my runs for the day to those last mile and a half with you, where I went down to running my normal average, running 8:30, and I just picked it up, and it was easy. It just became, I fought through it, and it just went back to being, okay, the training plan is working, right? So that's what I'm always telling my running buddy at home. It's like, trust the plan. It'll get me there. I've got a plan, but you have to have a plan to get there, to get you to succeed. You can't just say, oh, I'm going to run 5 miles today and that's enough, or I'm going to run 2 miles. Do it.
Right. Yeah, and it probably would have been just as easy for Avery just to bag it. that day he wakes up and doesn't feel great, but he's got that plan just talked about. But it's that kind of the end. Okay, I mean, I've had so many runs, and I was telling Avery this. I've had so many of these runs where it's like now I feel good. It's like I'm at mile 12, 13, 14. The kind of runner's high euphoria. But it's like it takes you getting through those first 13 miles to be like, oh, okay. And then what ends up happening by the time you're done. Okay, by the time you're done, even though you started off going, gosh, this is not going as planned. By the time you're done, what were you able to do then?
Oh, I was able to crush out those last couple miles, and by the time I got to back to your house, we were wandering around the house, and it was I felt better than the day started. I would have probably sat in bed all day with the sour stomach or whatever, and instead it was like, okay, great, let's play with the kids, let's jump on the trampoline, let's
right, yeah. Or you would have been cranky just because you hadn't followed through with the plan that you'd set. There would have been distractions. He would have been thinking, oh gosh, if only I would have. Well, maybe I'll try later. Maybe this. And we had things planned. And so that's kind of what I wanted to talk to you about. Is when the plan doesn't go necessarily as you had hoped. Okay, sometimes just get out the door. The toughest part is putting those shoes on, getting out the door. More likely than not, something will come through, even if it's not exactly how you planned. Because if you looked at Avery's map on the run ID, okay, I mean, it was zigzag. I'm driving, trying to find him, and he's like going this way, and he's lost, and it's going this way, and I'm like, okay, I know where these trails come out, and I know where this path is, and it's like, he's got, it was crazy, but, it all worked out in the end. And again, he got his mileage in, it worked out in the end. He was able to then be present throughout the rest of the day. He got his 15 miles in plus, did his workout. Now he's going to the next step in his marathon training plan, and it's not just a haphazard, I'm going to try and put something together, like you said. It's like have the plan, pull this together. And this stuff works, okay? This isn't just theory. It's not just me sitting behind the camera here going, hey, you know what? I think you should do this, or you should try this, or you should, have this. This is stuff, and this is the reason why I asked Avery to be a part of this today for episode 170, was to show you that, real life does happen. When a busy, dad, husband, runner, sales consultant, has issues. This is how the reality looks like. It's not in a book. It's not like, oh, the perfect training plan says that you're going to run, this and it's going to be beautiful. Okay. That's why we say put a training log together so that, he can put this down in a training log and say, oh yeah, I felt like this today, felt this, did this, and then you can look back and you can make this as detailed as possible. What did I do the night before? What happens if I'm traveling to that marathon? Okay. What happens if I'm traveling to that race and I don't exactly eat the right things? So what have I experienced this before? And if you've experienced these things before, it doesn't throw you off. You're not like, oh my gosh, now I'm in panic mode. What am I going to do? Okay. Sometimes it's just you put the shoes on, you get up, you go through that routine. You might stretch a little bit more, like Avery was saying. You might have a little bit of an upset stomach, but you still power through.
Yeah, and really just getting that, for me, I chalked this up. Yeah, I got the mileage in, but it was more about, hey, I've got the mental discipline that even if I wake up on race day to go run my marathon, I know that even if I feel bad, my body will recover, right? I've got the physical tools that are there, even if I'm not mentally checked into that, and I can power through that. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, and that's a huge thing, folks. I mean, if you're looking at this and you're watching this video, I tell people all the time, mentally, if you can push yourself through, whether it's a fog because you're stressed and you're overworked or you're got troubles at the house, if you can push through the mental part of it, if you've been training, 99% of the time the physical, unless you've been overtrained, but if it's just like this mental or just kind of whatever, 99% of the time you can push through all that. Okay, you get out the door, you start running, and you're like, okay, yeah, and then what ends up happening afterwards is the euphoria of you did it, you said you were going to do it, you accomplished the goal. Okay, now you're like, yeah, that was cake. So, hey, I appreciate you being on episode 170, folks. If you've got questions, you can email those to me at Brian, BRIAN at company5k. That's the number 5k.com. I like the race, and don't go hurting yourself to come back and check this out. But as I said before, if you have questions, comments, send this to me. But please share this with your friends, your family, training partners. And until next time, we will see you then. All right, thanks.